The Office of Utilities Regulation is facilitating this discussion this evening to create a forum in which the JPS can explain the major aspects of its application, and for you, the JPS customers, to make comments, seek clarifications, and ask general questions about the JPS's presentation. We hope that at the end of our meeting this evening, you would have left sufficiently satisfied that your views were heard and you are more informed about what the JPS is proposing. My name is Elizabeth Bennett Marsh. I'm the Public Education Specialist at the Office of Utilities Regulation, which is hosting this evening's consultation, and I will be moderating the proceedings this evening. At this point, please allow me to introduce the members of the head table, beginning with my immediate left. Your Acting Director for Region West, Mr. Shura Gibbs from the JPS. Beside her is the President and CEO of the JPS, Ms. Kelly Tomlin. And beside Ms. Tomlin is the Senior Chief Financial Officer of the JPS, Dan Theok. Now, the OUR, as you may by now know, was established to regulate the provision of utility services in the areas of electricity, telecommunications, water and sewage, and transportation, mainly road, rail, and ferry. The role of the Office of Utilities Regulation, the OUR, is multifaceted. We develop the framework within which the regulated entities operate, and the regulated entities are the JPS, the National Water Commission, Digicel, Lime, Flow. We set the rates and service standards for some of the regulated sectors, and it is in that capacity that we're here this evening having this public consultation with you. And we operate in an independent and transparent manner. We want to ensure that consumers of utility services enjoy an acceptable quality of service at a reasonable cost. An objective of the OUR is to also promote the long-term efficient provision of utility services consistent with national development and provide an avenue of appeal for consumers who have grievances with their utility service providers. There are several avenues of address for consumers, such as yourselves. The first avenue is to take your complaints to your utility provider. So if it is that you have a grouse with the Jamaica Public Service Company, we ask you to take that grouse to the JPS in the first instance. If it is that they have made a decision with which you are not satisfied, then by all means, we want to hear from you at the OUR. We are your avenue of appeal for any decision made by your utility provider with which you are not in agreement. And we have the approved guaranteed standard scheme, which holds the JPS accountable to you, the customers. What is the role of the OUR in this particular consultation? As you are aware by now, the JPS has submitted a tariff review application to the OUR for a 5-year period. Public consultations is a part of the consideration of that application. Now, the consultations should allow the JPS to inform members of the public about the specifics of their application, the highlights of their application, and for you, the customers, to query any aspects and to comment on the service standards that you're getting from the Jamaica Public Service Company. The OUR will not be making the case for the JPS. We're simply hosting the event to facilitate the getting together and the conversation between you, the customers, and the executives of the JPS. The JPS will make its presentations, and questions pertaining to the application should be directed to them. Your views are very, very important, and they will matter. The OUR will be writing a consumer chapter. We have persons in the audience right now making copious notes, especially of the question and answer session. The consumer chapter will be written, and details of your input will be included in it, and that will be incorporated in the decision made by the OUR on the JPS's application. The consultation this evening just does not end here. We still want to hear from you. If it is that after this evening you feel that you did not get an opportunity to air your concerns or to have your input, then we invite you to email us. We have set up a special email address so that you can email us, and it is on your program. It is jpstariff@our.org.jm. If you prefer the traditional mailing system, then we are listed in the directory via 114 as well. and our telephone numbers are also listed. The guaranteed standards that we spoke about earlier will also be reviewed for the 5-year period, and your input matters because they have been set for you, the customer. And the guaranteed standards, you should all have a copy. You would have received a copy at the help desk of the OUR. Have you all got a copy? If you haven't, just raise your hands and we'll come to you. We're giving you first-class service this evening. Trina, Councillor Sinclair needs a copy of the guaranteed standards. Thank you. Now, the JPS has 14 standards that were set by the OUR, but 3 of them have various components, so we really say 18 standards. And we wanted to look at them for us this evening. Go over them. If it is that you feel that something critical has been left out, something critical has not been addressed, then we want to hear from you. If it is that you go home and you look even after today, then write to us. We really want to have your input on that. And of course, the JPS is also making its own proposal, or has also made its own proposal for modifications to the current guaranteed standards. So we're bringing your views to light this evening. We want to hear from you, but first, let's hear from the JPS, beginning with its president and CEO, Kelly Tomlin. Can we have a round of applause, please?
Thank you, Liz. My JPS customers, members of the OUR, counselors, ladies and gentlemen, especially my JPS family, good evening. I've done this presentation a number of times, and I think every time behind this mic it will get easier, but it doesn't. While I'm happy to be here tonight, it's never easy to go over a presentation that discusses a rate increase with your customers, and it won't be easy tonight. So why are we here then? We're here because after months and months of JPS working with a number of consultants and trying to figure out how we really prepare our infrastructure for growth, we've come up with a solution, at least the best one we can find out of many hard choices, and we're here to present it tonight. But I wouldn't be completely honest if I would say that it's probably not the most favorite presentation I've ever given. So why are we here? JPS, unlike other companies, when their inputs go up and prices go up and they need an increase in their prices, they just can't do it. Like your local grocer or any other business, we can't just increase our prices. So we come every 5 years between and before you and the OUR and put forth our justification for a rate increase. We don't set our own rates. They are set by the OUR. And what you're here tonight is our proposal, certainly not what has been ordered, but our proposal. We're here to talk tonight only about the non-fuel rates. As I hope you know by now, your fuel bill has 2 rates, one of which is the fuel rate, which is 70% of their bill, and the other 30% is what JPS gets, and that's what we'll be discussing tonight. That's the subject of this rate review, and it really will determine what we're able to invest the next 5 years. I have a pictorial here that really describes it, but I do want to underscore what I do in these presentations, that regardless of what we think about our request, we share one common enemy, and that enemy is foreign oil. It represents 70% of your bill. It fluctuates. We can't control it. And it's the one attribute that we know if we get rid of, it makes a significant difference. Now, we do have other justifications or changes in your rates. Every year we have some modifications. And what I hear from my customers is, while it changes every month, the biggest change every month is primarily due to the fuel increase. And last month, of course, it went up, and all my customers called me. This time fuel rates are going down this month, so you'll see that fluctuation. And I'll just get to that right now, because this represents the piece of the bill we're talking about. As you can see, since 2002, it has increased from 9.2 cents a kilowatt hour up to over 13 cents. And for more than 10 years, that is an increase. But I hope you can agree with me, given the rate of increase of other things, that this is somewhat, if not rational, at least it happens in an orderly fashion. What we see with the fuel rates, however, is they've gone up 300%, and they have fluctuated widely and wildly. So that does make it difficult for our customers to manage. So what is our story tonight? It really is a story, as I said, one choice among many hard choices. None of them, not one, do I like. And that's the reason we filed this rate review late, more than a month late, because we worked with, as I said, a number of consultants trying to find the best option among all bad ones. And the one that we came up with tonight, we call going for growth. I think we've all heard in the news, especially recently, where we are. And I think we all know deep down there's no way to save our way out of this. As many markets before us, we have to grow our way out of it. And how do we grow it from a utility perspective? We make sure that we have the resilient grid that accepts growth. We facilitate new generation. We deliver solutions. And we create a market that beckons investment to come here. But I would ask our CFO, Dan Theok, to come and dig a little bit deeper in the specifics of the rate request. Dan.
How exactly will you be affected? I think it's important for me to just jump into that. For the residential customer class, we've divided the customer base into 3 blocks as shown before you. Those who use less than 100 kilowatt hours per month, those who use between 101 and 500, and those who use more than 500. As you can see, 41% of our customers use less than 100 kilowatt hours per month, and for them, based on what we've proposed to the OUR, of course, the OUR ultimately will decide and make the approval as they see fit. We're proposing a 17% increase, which is about $340 per month, or approximately $10 per day. For the next tier, that's about 56% of our customers, they would experience a 21% increase, which amounts to about $1,676 per month, or approximately $55 a day. And for 3% of our customers, those who are over 500 kilowatt hours, about 14,000 residential customers, they would experience a 23% increase. And here the message really is that for our largest residential customers, that using over 500 kilowatt hours, we're really sending a strong message that they should conserve. Our highest cost of energy happens between 6:30 and 9:30 p.m. The peak is driven by night consumption, which isn't really productive. It's residential usage at home. And the message we're really saying is if we all can conserve, especially at night, we'll be able to reduce the cost for everybody. And this is why we're very passionate about working on energy conservation efforts. And we are confident that we will be able to work with our customers to show them how they can reduce their consumption easily by 15%. For the rate 20 customer class, again, in terms of supporting the growth agenda, we have 4 tiers. And in this case, their energy charge will be reducing with the more they consume, because the objective here has to be to encourage production and encourage growth. Again, as we grow as a country over the next 5 to 7 years, we have the potential to reduce the overall cost of energy by 40%. But it really does require the commitment to growth. In these 4 blocks, less than 100, 40% of our commercial customers reside in that category. They would see a 13% increase. The second block, where 45% of our customers reside, they would see an 18% increase. Those are customers using between 100 and 1,000 kilowatt hours per month, commercial customers, small commercial customers. The third block, where 14% reside, where the consumption starts to get a little bit larger, they would see a 14% increase. And then for 992, 2% of the customer class in terms of numbers, they would actually see a 6% reduction, because this group of customers are in fact consuming more than 7,500 kilowatts per month, and that's a very high level of consumption for this class. In fact, they make up, in the pie chart, 31% of the total energy sales of this class. So 900 of approximately 60,000 persons consume 1/3 of the total energy of that group. And this is the group where, again, in supporting the growth agenda, that we're pushing for some rate reduction. Their average bill today is over 700,000 Jamaican dollars per month. So again, these are also customers typically taking voltage at the medium voltage level because of the higher demand that they have. And so we do believe it's appropriate, certainly guided by the cost of service study, to push for a rate reduction for that group. Moving up to the industrial customer class, these are customers whose demand is at least 25 kVA. And if I could back up that group, over 7,500, again, to put some perspective, they're about 100 times larger than the typical residential customer. So each guy in this class is a very big user of electricity. And again, paying tribute to the concepts of volume discount, they're purchasing on average 100 times more than a typical residential customer with a bill of about $700,000 per month. Going further up the chain with our industrial customers, where their demand exceeds 25 kVA, these are even larger customers, typically industrial. Again, we're proposing a rate reduction for them, and it ranges from 2% up to 8%. In the wholesale class, or the industrial class, the demand requirement is 1 MVA. That's a lot of power, and I'll expand on it. And for them, we're pushing for an 8% reduction. Again, 2,844 of these types of customers account for 50% of the entire energy sales on the entire grid. One of these rate 50 customers is typically the equivalent size of 5,000 residential customers and can be as large as 20,000 residential customers, just one of them. So of that 2,844, losing one of them can be like losing up to 20,000 customers. And indeed, whilst what we're asking for on average may result in a 20% rate impact to residential customers, if I lost even 1,400 of these large customers, instead of a 20% rate increase, we would need a 45% rate increase. It just gives you a feel for how large they are and why it is important that we have to encourage them to stay on the grid, to continue building jobs, creating employment, and growing the grid overall.
At this time, we're going to be taking your questions at the mic. We invite you to pose your comments, questions to the JPS on the application or the contents of the application that you've heard about this evening.
I am the local political representative for the Flankers community. And the comments that were made, although the RAMI system exists in many communities throughout Jamaica, and there are several in St. James. I think you identified a few of them, but there have been issues also in some of those communities with the RAMI system. Granville, you identified Pit 4, but there are problems in retirement which are similar to those that exist in Flankers. Now, the RAMI system is just an abbreviated description of the residential automated something or another infrastructure. Residential. So Pit 4, that is strictly residential, may not have a problem with a system that is probably built for residential communities. Flankers is a mixture of residential and commercial. You speak about partnership and wanting to build partnership with JPS and other persons. I have been communicating with you, Mrs. Gibbs, through text messages. I have 8 pages here of text messages that I printed, starting from October of last year to March of this year, regarding the breakdown of the unit in the community. EGs are listed, and you have indicated by response the response that one would have expected from the Jamaica Public Service. Some of them have been out for 2 weeks, persons not getting back their electricity. I'm happy to hear about the guaranteed standards. I have made claims on behalf of persons in that community that have suffered, and there has been breach of the guaranteed standards, and the JPS has not responded.
You mentioned you sending a letter to us regarding breach of guaranteed standards. There are some standards that do not qualify for automatic compensation, and I know the one that you are referring to are the consecutive estimated bills, and those do not go with automatic compensation. The customer impacted must come to the office and fill out the compensation form. And it does state that in the OUR list of guaranteed standards that was presented earlier by the OUR. You mentioned commercial customers in Flanker under RAMI system. Actually, all the commercial customers we're aware of in Flanker are off the RAMI system and actually have transformers serving them. So if there are commercial customers in the community who are using more than the RAMI is able to supply, we're more than happy to have dialogue with them and have them removed. But yes, most of those customers in Claude Clark Avenue, the supermarkets, even 3 weeks ago, the GEI called me, Councillor Sinclair, to ask me if I was going to put a transformer to support some new businesses coming in Flanker. And I told them yes, to go ahead and give them the certification. So if you're saying there are other businesses that we're not offering this to, I am more than happy to facilitate that for them.
Good evening.
I'm Claudel Robinson from Irwin Point, and I have a few questions from the community and a couple from the president of the Irwin CDC who could not be here tonight, Mr. Jackson. One of our issues at Irwin Point, the entrance to our community is it's very dark, and without a street light there, it's very daunting for people coming in. And we've had a street light out for several months now, and the community wants to know, why does it take so long to order parts for street lights and things like that? And I think you, Tashore, have mentioned this earlier, but as Kenley Tomlin said in a report on Power 106 FM on April the 15th, the thieves reconnect as soon as the JPS team leaves. So why are the authorities, police, and especially the government unwilling to take effective legal action against the thousands of electricity thieves? This next question it's not trivial, but it is said that our bills include a portion for electricity theft. Why are electricity thieves being rewarded in this way? The JPS bills keep abreast with the devaluation of the Jamaican dollar. The income of most Jamaicans don't. Why should we be additionally oppressed with a tariff increase?
We did fix a number of streetlights last year, and I think last month in particular. We do continue to be challenged because often we don't get paid for those streetlights, so it's hard to really buy parts, but we're working with the DOJ to get payment for those streetlights so we can reinvest in them. The portion of that goes to electricity theft, I will say that you don't like it and I don't like it because we each pay a part, but we are the only Caribbean country that we know of that doesn't pass on the total cost to our customers. So we all are suffering that together, and I'm not sure if there's any other thing you wanted to add, Tashura?
Just to add to the streetlight, good evening, Mrs. Robinson, by the way. Nice seeing you after been speaking to you for so many months. We had a challenge with streetlight materials, as you rightfully said, which was communicated to you. We did a massive drive back in December to fix a lot of the lights, and we did run out of materials, and yes, we did have a challenge collecting money to reinvest. But we did find some money and we did reinvest, and last week we fixed 48 in the parish, and we're doing them by divisions. So I'll check before you leave when we'll get to your division so you can have an idea of when we'll have yours repaired for you.
You know, more than 95% of our total costs are in fact incurred in US dollars. It's not by choice, it's because, for instance, 100% of the fuel is billed to us in US dollars because it's an imported product, indeed the largest single import of the country of Jamaica. And all of the parts and components for our network are predominantly brought in from abroad. So we do face this real challenge of having to revisit our cost each 5 years to look at what it is, to do our cost of service study, to submit that information, submit our audited reports, and then the OER on top of that is doing an operational efficiency audit to make sure that the costs that I said, the $34 billion that I mentioned, are real, to analyze that before they ultimately review our more than 400-page rate application and ultimately make the decision. But these are real costs that we're incurring, that we're suggesting to the OER. We need to be able to have a fair chance to recover those costs if we want to keep the lights on, if we want to continue building a stronger grid and ultimately support the new generation that's to come.
I noticed that there's a reference to the role played by a small set in maintaining the overall rate. And there are under 3,000 people who, in effect, pay for 50% of the electricity. Very, very, very worthy of note, but at the same time, I say to you that while we appreciate that without them, we would definitely be paying more, I notice there's a reference to the capital that they have invested. And as if to say, we haven't invested any capital. And as if to say, our capital is not recognized. Now, I say to you, they have invested capital, and I speak now for business persons generally, as president of the chamber, but also as an individual with a residence. Were we, as you are encouraging us to do, to go to your e-store and to buy all of these modern day equipment, why would those pieces of equipment not be regarded as an investment on our part, and why shouldn't we be credited for buying the solar system? Any reason why we can't get that same kind of credit that the big players, as you say, have invested? I think we need to have a rate or some kind of subsidy which reflects the fact that a householder might go out and retrofit his house with a modern day system that speaks to efficiency, and not just the big players alone. So that would be my suggestion, number one. I want to say also that insofar as partnerships are concerned, I will acknowledge that the JPS of late, and I'm unapologetic, has been, if you really deal with them, quite willing to address issues. And I say so because as president of the chamber, we have had several complaints, and to Councillor Sinclair, my colleague attorney, I'll say we have reported to the JPS the absence of streetlights in Sam Sharp Square just before Christmas. And I can assure you, members of the audience, that within a matter of a week, the lights in Sam Sharp Square was working.
The capital investment, no, of course, we're saying all customers have equal opportunity to benefit from investing in energy-saving devices and improving their efficiency. What I was speaking to with the industrial customers is the fact that when they invest in the transformers themselves, when they purchase a $10 million transformer, that saves us and then ultimately you all from paying for a $10 million transformer to serve them. So for customers who take voltage at the high voltage level, and there are only about 100 customers, they have actually made that huge capital investment to buy a transformer to take power at the highest voltage level, and therefore it does stand to reason in our cost of service that it will be cheaper to serve them. And for our existing approximately 1,400 rate 40 customers, those are the ones where we bought the transformer, it's always an option before you that if you purchase the transformer and take the power at the high voltage level, that there is an option to receive a lower tariff. And so it's something we want to encourage because it shifts some of the capital off of all of us onto specific individuals. And so that's what I was referring to, just to differentiate. Thank you.
My name is Reverend Stephen Blake. I represent the communities of Gully, Canterbury, and Albion Lane. I am a pastor for these communities. Recently, to rebuild the bridges in these communities, and this is something that we encourage because we do not support light being stolen. As a preacher, I preach against stealing. So I encourage a partnership in this regards where light has to be paid for, and it is something that helps us to grow mentally, physically, spiritually. However, what I would implore JPS, especially the OER, because I know that you are the ones that are are putting down your foot specifically about the increases because obviously are under pressure. But these communities are very sensitive. Very sensitive. And if I can take it back to 2003, where a big explosion went on in Montego Bay between Canterbury and the police, and it was sparked by JPS. And my concern is that there has been peace in these communities for the last at least 2.5, 3 years. And the people are under pressure. Yes, we know that there are scamming and certain things that happen, but it's been locked down on. And so with these things being locked down, there's not enough income. I'm not saying I support it, but I have to respond on behalf of the people. And what I would say is with you coming into the community, they have already accepted you. They have already responded well. Please go about it carefully with the increases.
The one thing we acknowledge is that when people are not accustomed to paying for electricity, they don't understand the cost of electricity. And one thing that we did when we entered Canterbury, and we thank you for accepting us in the community, but the one thing that we did was to set up a workshop, and we taught customers how to conserve. It's very, very important at this time that we understand conservation methods and make sure that we're not using more than we can afford to pay. We also have a prepaid metering system. There's a pilot project going on right now in an area of Kingston, and we're looking forward to rolling it out to the parish of St. James. And what that will do is it will allow customers to purchase the amount of electricity that they can afford to pay for. And once that the credit runs down, then they'll be able to top up again. But I have no control over certain aspects of the bill. We don't have any control over the fuel part of the bill, but we do have control over the amount of energy that we use. And so we hear you, and we will come back to the community, and we will again do conservation forums with these customers so they can understand how to conserve.
And that brings an end, ladies and gentlemen, to our consultation this evening. I thought we had very great conversations coming out of this evening. I hope the dialogue will continue through your communications with the OUR via email, via traditional mail, via telephone call, etc., so that we can get your input because we recognize that it matters. Drive safely home or walk safely home. Good evening.